deep in the heart of the ancient city of Tenochtitlan, where towering pyramids reached for the sky and the air hummed with the chants of priests, there stood a sacred place known as Templo Mayor. This great temple was the center of the Aztec world, a place where the gods walked among men and where blood was spilled to keep the sun moving across the sky. Among the many rituals performed here, none were as feared or as sacred as the sacrifices made with the obsidian blade. The story begins with a young boy named Cuauhtli. He was not a warrior, not a noble, but the son of a farmer who lived on the outskirts of the city. From the time he was small, Cuauhtli had heard whispers of the sacrifices at Templo Mayor. The elders spoke of how the gods demanded blood, how without it the world would fall into darkness. But to Cuauhtli, these were just stories, until the day the priests came for him. It was during the festival of Tenochtitlan, a time when the god Tenochtitlan, the smoking mirror, was honored. The priests walked through the streets, searching for the perfect offering, a youth without flaw, handsome and strong. When they saw Cuauhtli, they knew he was the one. His parents wept, but they could not refuse. To be chosen was both a terror and an honor. For an entire year, Cuauhtli was treated like a god. He wore fine clothes, ate the best food, and was taught to play the flute. The people bowed to him as he passed, for he was no longer just a boy. He was the living image of Tenochtitlan. But Cuauhtli knew his fate. With every passing day, the great pyramid of Templo Mayor loomed larger in his mind. The day of the sacrifice arrived. The city was alive with music and dancing. The air was thick with the smell of incense and the sound of drums. Cuauhtli climbed the steps of the pyramid, his heart pounding but his face calm. At the top, the high priest waited, holding an obsidian blade, a knife sharper than any metal, black as the night sky. Cuauhtli was laid upon the stone altar. The priest raised the blade, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then, with a single swift motion, the knife cut deep. Cuautli's blood spilled onto the stone, running down the sides of the pyramid like a river. The people below cheered, for they believed his sacrifice would bring rain, would bring life, would keep the sun rising another day. But the story does not end there. Legends say that on the night of the sacrifice, a strange thing happened. As Cuautli's blood touched the earth, the ground trembled. A great crack split the stones of Templo Mayor, and from it rose a figure cloaked in shadows. Some claimed it was Tenochtitlan himself, pleased with the offering. Others whispered it was the spirit of Cuauhtli, angry at his fate. For years after, the priests spoke of visions. A young man with a flute walking the halls of the temple at night. They said he played a mournful tune, one that made even the bravest warriors shudder. Some believed the gods were no longer satisfied with simple sacrifices. They demanded more. And so the rituals grew darker. Not just one life, but dozens were taken atop Templo Mayor. Obsidian blades flashed in the sunlight, and the stones of the temple were stained red. The people believed this was necessary, that without blood the world would end. But with each death, the shadowy figure appeared again, watching, waiting. Then came the year of the great drought. No matter how many sacrifices were made, the rains did not come. The crops withered, the rivers dried, and the people grew desperate. The high priest declared that only the greatest sacrifice would please the gods. A king must die. The ruler of Tenochtitlan, Moctezuma himself, was told of this prophecy. He was a proud man, but even he could not deny the will of the gods. On the day of the ceremony, he climbed the pyramid, dressed in his finest robes. The obsidian blade awaited him. But as the priest raised the knife, a voice echoed through the temple, a voice that sounded like Cuautli's. "Enough," it said. "The gods do not hunger for blood, they hunger for faith." The priest hesitated. The people gasped, and in that moment, the sky darkened. Thunder rolled, and for the first time in years, rain began to fall. It was as if the heavens themselves were weeping. From that day on, the sacrifices at Templo Mayor changed. Fewer lives were taken, and the people turned to prayers and offerings of flowers instead of blood. Some say the spirit of Cuauhtli still walks the temple, ensuring that no more innocent blood is spilled. Others claim it was all just a tale, a lesson told to remind men that even gods can grow weary of death. But if you ever visit the ruins of Templo Mayor, listen closely when the wind blows. You might just hear the sound of a flute playing softly in the shadows, a reminder of the boy who became a legend and the obsidian blade that changed the fate of an empire.